Hello, hello. Welcome to the very first Avocado Digital webinar. And we're just talking through systems for success. This is absolutely being recorded, and I will be sharing it with everyone who attends. And hopefully there'll be more people logging in as we go on. We have 30 minutes. And so I wanted to make sure that I'm respecting everybody's time and respecting the time limits that we have. And I'm going to slow down how quickly I am talking. So I'm Stephanie Benoit, and I own Avocado Digital. It is a marketing consultancy where we help brands, particularly new brands and small businesses, to grow and scale with all the things that I have known and learned and picked up across the industries that I've worked in over the last decade of my career. So I'm just going to jump into our slide deck here and just kind of talk through our game plan. So this is a 3-part series of webinars. So this is going to be part 1, where we're looking at the Genesis method. I'm going to be very clear that I'm not trying to force any religious beliefs on anybody or spirituality of any sort on anyone, but I also believe that there's a lot of things to be learned from observation and things that we can apply to our lives just based on books that we read or movies or shows that we see, and how we can build systems to find success in those ways. And so for me, one of those books happens to be the Bible. But the creation story appears in a number of ways across a number of shows. And so we can also talk about that in another session, but in this session, we're going to be talking about the Genesis method. And then in session 2, we're going to be talking about the butterfly method. And then in part 3, we're going to be talking about practical application advice. So this is the time where you would come with your ideas, with your plans, with your questions, and I will happily answer them for you. So let's get into part 1 here. Have a little dad joke for you. These are my bread and butter. So, what did the pirates say at the university tailgate? Are you okay? I thought it was funny. Anyway, you can absolutely let me know how you feel about it by using an emoji. And as they come up, I will know if this is a winner or a loser for a dad joke. I actually haven't watched One Piece on Netflix yet. That is on my to-do list. Here, I just recently started rewatching Smallville. It felt familiar, and I've been into the superheroes a bit lately. So let's go on to the next slide. And we're just kind of going to get started here completely. And we want to focus a bit on our mindset. So, who are you? What do you do? What do you have access to? Right. And so the metaphor that I used here is the free bird versus the caged bird. And as you can see on the screen, my little doodle art, I have a bird here with some bread in its beak, and I also have a bird in a cage. And I was at the beach not too long ago, and I saw a seagull, and it flew over some rocks with a huge chunk of bread in its mouth. And as soon as it landed and started eating the bread, another seagull came and like body checked it and stole the bread. And so the seagull that initially had the bread flew away. And then the seagull that stole the bread wouldn't let anybody else come partake in the bread that had stolen. And so other birds tried. One bird kept trying, and kept being pushed out, kept being knocked out. And there was also some pigeons that were around getting the crumbs of the bread that the seagull that stole the bread had. And this is absolutely a clear take on mindset, right? So do you have scarcity mindset where it's like, I need to take from other people? There's only one person who can have this victory. There's only one person who can do this thing or be in this lane. Or do you have an abundance mindset where it doesn't matter what happens, you know where you got your bread from, right? You know that you can go back and recreate something new, something different. I've often said that I I want to believe so badly, right, that I am the bird that got the bread in the first place. That was like, you can have this bread. It's fine. I don't need it. But I've a lot of times been the bird who was begging, right? The bird who stole it to let me just have some, just a little piece. And not even the bird who stole it, but like the bird who's like, hey, I saw that you took this. Can I have a piece? Can I have some? Can I have some? And no, go back to the source of the bread, go back to where the bread came from. Or better yet, if you don't know where the bread came from, follow the bird who had the bread in the first place, so that you can get to where that bread came from. And so that really you're just navigating a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. What is available to you? Where can you get the thing from? Can you get it again? And then also like navigating where you are in terms of like, are you a caged bird or are you a free bird? Can you live your life in the way that you want to live your life? Are you beholden to certain systems that you may not necessarily agree with? Or do you feel like there's no other options? There's no other choices? Um, that's a really good place to like kind of ascertain where your starting point is, right? You want to have a free bird mindset. You want to trust that there's abundance, that you can always go find some more. You know where you got the bread from, right? I like to say, I know the muffin man. I know the muffin man. I don't need to argue for crumbs, right? I can just go back to the muffin man's house and knock on his door and say, hey, can you bake me a cake? You know? So essentially, the point here is don't let your mindset become your cage, right? And so we're going to jump into the framework for the Genesis method. Keep an open mind. This will actually change the way that you look at a lot of things in your life. And when I say that the system works for everything, I mean the system works for everything. It works for everything. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump into the Genesis method. We're playing producer and host at the same time. So I'm moving through some slides here. And so this is essentially it, right? We have 7 pieces, 7 days of creation, right? And there are 7 pieces of the Genesis method. So for piece 1, you have knowledge. What information do you have? What light do you have? For number 2, it is your focus. What are you focused on? Foundations, your guiding lights. What movements are you making? What things are you creating? And then executing. And then finally resting and reviewing what you created and then, doing it again. So those are the 7 pieces of the Genesis method. And so we're going to go through each piece in the session and hopefully you guys get everything that you need and you can ask your questions at the end. So we're going to start with light. So knowledge is obviously your light. And it starts with a very clear prompt. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. Essentially, you need to look at what your vision is, what your dreams are, and sort out what is far-fetched for you. And even then, I'll put a pin in that because we like far-fetched dreams. Think about what it is that you want to do. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How does it smell? How does it sound? Visualize it. Understand how you get to it. What steps do you take? Who has something similar? Because nobody's ever going to really have exactly what you have. Your experience is going to be different. But who has something similar? Who has walked a similar path? How did they get there? And then looking at the pieces of their path and seeing if that is a path that you want to walk as well, or if there's a different path to the river that you would like to take. And then also being clear on your why and who you're doing this for. Is this a trivial pursuit? I have a conversation with my mom pretty regularly where she'll be like, I always want money. I'm always wishing for payday. And for me, I feel like money is a tool. It is a tool for building a life. It is a tool for pursuing dreams. I don't think it is the goal in and of itself. And so personally, I feel like that is a trivial pursuit. And so you need to think about what it is that you're pursuing. Is it a trivial pursuit or is it, something that is bigger? So the questions you want to ask yourself beyond what you want to see is what problems do you want to solve? What issues do people have or experience, or that you have experienced that you know that others have experienced that you can tackle for them? um, what breaks your heart enough to move you into action, to move you into saying something, or doing something? What experiences have you had that ultimately drive you forward and saying, like, I had this experience, it was terrible for me, I never want to experience that again, I wouldn't even wish it on my worst enemy, how can I make it so that this doesn't, happen to anyone ever again? So, or happen to me ever again. So what is the system that you, um, or rather, what are the things that you want to see happen, and understanding your whys for doing it? And so the reason that I settle on why knowing your why is so critical, um, there are things that we pursue and things that we do, and there has to be a reason behind it to keep us going. So if you have a dream, if the pursuit is just money, you can do anything for money, right? But if the pursuit is doing something bigger, creating something larger, making the world better, then you are moving forward even when money isn't coming. You're still trying even when there's no financial benefit. So I have three examples here from people who are on LinkedIn with me. The links are actually in the photos. So when you get the slide deck, you can click through and see exactly what it is that these people do and who they're and what they're working on. This is an image here of my good friend Liddy. Liddy Mark. She is an MPH, and she does a lot of work in public health, currently based out of Nashville. And this is her younger brother, Schmid. I've known them since I was 11 years old. So we have been in each other's lives for a very, very long time. Our families are connected in a very marvelous way, I would say. My uncle is a pastor, is an Adventist pastor, and um, he is the one who baptized their father into Adventism. And our families have had that connection for eons. They lived in Boston. I have other family members that live in Boston. I don't want to give all their details, all their personal details or life stories. But ultimately, my good friend Schmid passed away in 2022. He was very young, and he had sickle cell disease. And Liddy talks about this extensively in her blog that I have shared here. And Schmidt is her why. She wants to make sure that families have access to healthcare. And so even if her financial situation didn't look the way that it did, even if she wasn't rising in the industry in the way that she is, she would still pursue this because her why is based on her love for her brother, and people who have had experiences like her brothers. And then here's my little sister. Her name is Christina. My little sister has traversed a lot of things. And I'm incredibly proud of her, but she's found like the healing power of music and the ability to create using not just her voice, but a number of different instruments, and wanting to help people with those methods. And so she's currently studying um, music therapy, and she is planning to go to Italy to study there briefly, I believe in Pisa, for a few weeks to complete her equivalency program so that she can jump into her master's program and start working towards that music therapy degree. And then finally, there is Max. So I worked with Max when I was at Be Free, and he was the head of customer success there for a time. And he such a good energy, such a good guy. I didn't know him very well, but on LinkedIn a little while ago, about a year ago, I saw him post a post about a not-for-profit that he created because of his son. And so he believes in the ability of creativity to heal and help, and so he has built a foundation for that. And so, and it is growing, and I love seeing the work that he's doing. So ultimately, what I want to say is that purpose creates our direction. It gives us something to keep going towards. And so that your pursuit, the thing that you're going after, isn't trivial. It's not just like candy and pleasure, right? But it is something sustainable, something that is nurturing for your soul, and not just something to entertain you or make you happy. And so the next step here is focus. Um, So what you want to do is break the dream, break the goal into pieces, break it into parts, break the vision into parts. How do you accomplish this? What steps do you take? What is step 1, 2, 3, 4, etc.? Once you break it into parts, then you can start at the place that makes the most sense for you to start. So, for example, when I was transitioning from uh, teaching, the method that I used was copywriting. So I was copywriting for an organization where I was writing blogs about things that parents needed, things that parents wanted. There were affiliate links inside, so they had to be really SEO, really organized. And ultimately, that was the freelance opportunity that kind of built the bridge for me into a full-time marketing career. Um, and so it just was really starting where I was. What knowledge did I already have that I could apply in this moment? Another example I could give is my grandmother. She passed away in 2024. Oh, it's already been 2 years. Goodness, it doesn't quite feel like it. But my grandfather was blind. She had 5 mouths to feed, right? And she needed to figure something out. And she was really scrappy, and she would cook for people, and she would bring food to market so that people could eat. And then she would also help with dry cleaning and laundering and folding clothes, doing whatever she could do, whatever skills she could leverage to help feed her family when her husband was no longer able to do it. And so you just focus on the things that create momentum, focus on the things that meet your needs in the moment, get scrappy if you have to get scrappy. And then the questions that you want to ask yourself is, what can you do alone? What can you do by yourself that you don't need other people's support for? Or what resources are available that you can easily go to? So for me, when I was transitioning into marketing, that was HubSpot. That was that was Coursera, that was Skillshare, where I was able to go and learn from other people who have already mastered these skills and practice the things that they wanted to practice, understanding what requires collaboration. So for design, I can use my own eyes, but you'll see here shortly. I can use my own eyes, but sometimes they're not enough. Sometimes you need other people's support so that you can see what you're doing wrong. And then understanding what you need to do in this season, what works right now versus what you need to do down the line. What can you start today versus what you need to wait on for a little bit longer. So what are you assigned for this season? So you have to keep in mind, what wolf are you feeding, right? This is a cliche like saying that you hear a lot: be careful what wolf you're feeding. So if we look at the first image here that I made, it was one of the very early images that I made in Canva, and I was like, this is so cute. Um, um, and I made this one last year when I was working on something else, and it is far better, right, than what I made in the very first time. Why? Because my eyes have been able to adjust. My hands can now do the things that my eyes really want to see. And I've had other people's eyes with me along the way to help me kind of make things better as I was working towards improving the skill set, but also feeding the right wolf, right? So if I was looking at this image and I was like, oh, I'm so bad at this, I'm so bad at this, I'm so bad at this, I should stop, I would not have gotten any better. It wouldn't have improved in any way whatsoever, right? And so the magic of developing things is where your focus is, right? Which wolf are you feeding? Are you feeding the one that says, this can be good, this can be better? Are you glass half full, or are you glass half empty, essentially? And so mindset is also important in this stage as well, which is why we opened talking about it. So next step is your dry land, your foundations. And I have where my roots ain't watered down. This is a line from Black Parade by Beyonce. So you want to think about your roots here. Just random story, I have a fig tree, and it was growing beautifully. It was growing beautiful little leaves. It was super tall, and it had a fig on it. And I pulled the fig off because I was like, you're not big enough to be bearing fruit just yet. Hold on, let's get your leaves growing. And then I overwatered it. I overwatered the tree, and it stopped growing. The leaves fell off, and it went dormant because it was having a really hard time. And then the tree started to die. and I ended up having to cut about 2/3 of it off. It is now in a better place, not in a better place like it's gone, but better place like it's improving, right? And so understanding what your roots are and what your roots need. So you want to start with something practical. So like I said, when I was transitioning from teaching into marketing, that for me, that practical thing for me was copywriting. I was already sending emails. I was already writing student write-ups. Writing was already a huge part of my job, right? I was already setting up lesson plans. So strategy was already a big part of my job, and it was a very easy transition from teaching to doing that kind of work because I just had to switch my thinking about what my students needed to what my customers needed, from what my students needed to what my stakeholders needed. And so it was a very practical transition for me to move from teaching to marketing. I looked at what resources were available for me to build my foundations, what tools did I have in my toolbox already, which we talked about a bit. Um, and then just focusing on consistency over perfection. I read some of the early content that I wrote, like some of the early things, and I laugh. I laugh at it. I was I was looking at my blog. I've had this blog since 2009. And I was reading some of the things that I wrote in 2009, and I was like, my goodness, this is terrible. And so over time, like, you improve, right? You get better. And so you just have to be consistent because that's what it requires for your skill set. So how can I build the necessary tools if I don't have them, right? If you don't have your hammer, what can you make into a hammer? Can you use a rock? Can you use a book? Can you use the back of your phone? Can you use a shoe? Whatever you have that you can turn into a hammer, make it a hammer so that you can, start building the boxes that you want to build, start building the houses or the structures that you want to build. And then the last piece here for your foundations is setting your milestones. What things do you want to see come to pass? And what things do you need to see along the way to know that you're on the right path, right? So I think weight loss is an easy place to go to for this. I started 2023 at 235 pounds, and I'm currently sitting here at about 160. And a lot of it was setting smaller goals, smaller milestones, smaller reasons to celebrate. And then also building systems, which is the next place that we're going to go to. But before I get into that, I just want to talk to you a little bit about your foundations. So you should build your foundations on things that interest you or things that you're already rooted in. So I like to talk about, this is my family. I'm kind of obsessed with them. So I think this makes perfect sense to start talking about. You have to care about what you're doing in order to be consistent with it. My cousin Bianca, she is doing an inversion on a Cadillac. She posted a video about it on Instagram, and her Instagram is linked in the photo. She runs Pilates classes in Temecula, and she is very kind and very kind-hearted and very sweet. And she got into Pilates about 10 years ago. And it became something that she really enjoyed. And then after she had her daughter, that was also the way that she got her body back together. It made her feel good about herself. And it's also been a really great way for her to ground herself along the way. And so my cousin Bianca does Pilates, and she's very good at it. And the reason that she was able to be consistent with it was because it was something she actually really enjoyed doing. It was something she actually really cared about. And so here in the middle is my cousin Herlin. Herlin is, I love her. She she is a yoga instructor. She studied yoga for herself, for her mental health, for her life, and she got really into it. And then she went and took instructor courses, and her partner supported her in paying for it. And with the change of this administration, she also has a master's of public health from Emory University. And with the change in this administration, in the current American administration, her job was cut. And so she went into yoga, and this was her fallback, but it's also something that she's been passionate about for years, that she's been doing for years, and she's very good at. And so now she hosts classes for seniors, she hosts classes for children, and she does a beautiful job doing it. And her Instagram is also linked in her photo. And then the final example I have here is my brother, my older brother, Kenny Benoit. He is a lacrosse coach in Evansville, Indiana. And He has consistently been one of the top rated coaches in his district. He was coach of the year as well. He's gone to a number of conferences. He's been featured in newspaper articles because he is passionate about sports. He's passionate about coaching and teaching. And so he's been doing that for several years. We're kind of running low on time here. And so I just wanted to kind of move through the next few slides, but you can also read more detail about them. Their Instagrams are all their LinkedIn's and their Instagrams are all linked here in the slide deck, and I will be sharing those with you as well. And so we have about 3 or 4 slides to go. So you want to start building your systems, right? So we talked about this a little bit before, the systems that you want to build for your life. What routines, environments, habits, and structures do you need in order to be successful? So the questions that you can ask yourself: what boxes do I need to keep me going? How do I make this repeatable without having to think too hard about it? Because let me tell you something, I think a lot. I'm always thinking. And so if I can kind of make it muscle memory, like when you're driving down the highway in your car and suddenly you're getting off your exit, this is what your systems do for you. They just guide your movement. And then just understanding what you can move or what you can change to make that system more sticky for you. So quick example, in my kitchen, on the countertop, all my vitamins are there. So I can remember to take them every day. I have a trash can right there. I used to have my recycling bins outside on the patio, and I have now brought them in because I wasn't recycling, right? So you need to do things, place things, create systems that make it easy for your brain to just do it. And then suddenly you're getting off your exit. And some of the systems that I have built over the years to keep consistent, they're also all linked here. So my book publishing plan, the things that I move through, I can slow down just a little bit. The things that I have moved through in order to publish 2 books, and I'm working on publishing a 3rd, my Substack publication system. So I actually have several different sections or several different newsletters inside of the Substack that are on similar topics, but kind of varied topics, because I'm a bit of an octopus. My hands are in a little bit of everything. So I have knowledge across a lot of different industries and a lot of different spaces. And I like to share my knowledge. So I built the Substack for that purpose. And I have a publication system for that. And it's also linked here. And then finally, my marketing playbooks. This is one that I did. It's a case study around a launch project that I did at Demandbase last fall. And it was one of the largest launches. And it also produced more than 60,000 in renewals, just from that one kind of customer system that we had set up at their organization. So then we want to create things that move. And when I say move, I mean things that move people, things that move you, things that move your business forward, right? And so having conversations with people, even when that's challenging, talking to friends. A metaphor I like to use is about when you're walking into the water, like you're at the beach and you're walking into the water and the water is really cold, right? And you'll get up to like a certain part of your body and you're like, okay, I'm just going to have to dive in, right? And so you've done the walking. Now it's time to move. Dip your head under so that you can get comfortable in this space. So you don't want to spend too much time overthinking. You don't want to spend too much time over planning. You already planned, right? And so because you've already planned, you want to be able to jump into the thing. So you want to think about just some of the small questions you can ask, who you can talk to, what you can read to grow your understanding, but you don't want to stay there for too long, right? You have to also ask yourself, what can I put out into the world for people to see? And then you can start moving towards your next things. So your movement absolutely needs direction. You don't want to be on a treadmill forever. You want to be on a hiking trail. And understanding, like, who are you becoming? What do you need help with? Who are you helping? And what are you moving with? Who are you moving with? Who's part of your team? And then the final piece here, 2 more, is to execute. You want to do this consistently, use repetition. You want to iterate, and don't be too worried about it being imperfect, because you can iterate and make it better over time. And then the last step here is to rest. So you want to review, evaluate, support, and test all the things. You're not concerned with failure. That doesn't matter. You want to learn. So there's no failure. There's just learning. learn, review, and build something sustainable that can grow over time. And that is everything. That's session 1. And then we can jump into more details in session 2. So I will see you guys there, and feel free to send me your questions via DM or via email.